Hello, this is Dr. Shepard, exercise physiologist at the School of Physical Therapy at Marshall University, with some training in biomechanics and a passion for looking at the softball and baseball swings, trying to improve performance. And today what we're going to do is try to make a good hitter a better hitter. So you see the hitter up at the top. She is a real good player, batting average about 300, hits the ball a long way for her size, very athletic, but has some flaws in her swing. So if we can get that batting average of 300 up to 500 by doing some tweaking, and that's just, some things that I'm going to show you today and compare it to Aaron Judge down here at the bottom, using him as a model. So if you look at the top, if I just run her through her swing, you can see that she has 68 miles per hour exit velocity, which at age 12 is the average is about 51. So she's got the nervous system to do the job and be a good hitter and hit the ball a long way. You can see that she makes a very athletic move through the ball. And above all, she's very aggressive. And what I recommend for youth hitters is to make sure they're aggressive. Don't try to back them off and just swing easy and all of that, because what you'll be doing is you'll be inadvertently taking the athleticism away from them by trying to tell them to guide the bat, because that's how they're going to interpret your instructions. So real nice hitter here, but has some things that we want to look at that maybe we can improve. Down below, you have one of the best hitters in baseball, Aaron Judge, and we're going to be using his swing to compare to hers and see if there's some aspects of her swing that we can improve. All right, so let's get started. The first thing is during the load with the player up top, we can see that she has a very big load, very big leg kick, and that's okay, but at this age, I think I would calm that down some. But the biggest problem with her load is that she's turning the right thigh out, and she's not loading against her right thigh. So I'll tell you what that means here in just a second. So if we look, first of all, we want to make sure that the pressure on the load is inside of the back foot. And the way to do that is we want the angle of the knee to be inside of the right foot. And you can see her angle is where her knee is actually to the outside of the right foot, so the pressure is going to be on the outside of her foot, and that's going to cause her to lay back on her backside too long and not be able to accurately get her momentum going forward in a consistent fashion as far as timing is concerned. So one of the first things that we would do then is try to rectify that problem. Now, if you look down below at Aaron Judge, you will see that he is coming during his load. It's hard to see, but his knee is right where the catcher's mitt is, and you can see that his knee is inside of his would be inside of his right foot. And the other thing to look at is that the thigh is staying forward facing. It is not turning outward with his hips like we have up at the top. Now what happens then is you see this crease during the load right here at the pocket, the right pocket. You'll see a crease develop there, and what he's doing is he is turning his hips against a firm right leg that stays forward facing. He's not allowing his knee to go outward. He's not allowing his thigh to go outward. His hips are turning, but they're turning against a firm front side, and he's creating a crease there at his right pocket. And I would highly recommend this technique. It's the same technique that we use in golf, so that when we're rotating our hips, we're rotating against a firm right side. All right, so what that's going to do is that's going to create consistency and power in the swing rather than, again, as we see at the top here, we do not want her to rotate that thigh outward as you see her doing there. See the thigh rotate outward. We want that right thigh to be facing forward. Then when she makes this turn, she makes it turn against that right thigh and creating a crease at her right hip. While we were talking about that crease at the right hip, another potential problem with some hitters is this crease needs to be maintained. Looking down at Aaron Juggs at the bottom again, needs to be maintained throughout the entire swing. You do not want to raise up and straighten that crease out during the forward projection of the move toward the pitcher. If you do, that's called early extension, and that will take power away from your swing and also decrease your consistency as well. So you want to maintain the crease by turning the right leg, coming up on your toe, staying down in your posture. You do not want to come up and out of your posture. That's going to cause you to hit the top of the ball and drive the ball down into the ground. All right? So that would be one of the first things I would do with the player at the top is calm down her legs with her load, decrease the height of her kick, but more importantly, keep that foot. One thing I may do with her is actually turn her right toe inward, so that thigh would stay forward facing and turning against and providing resistance with that right leg as you turn your hips. All right? So looking at her at the top as we start her swing, what we see is that as she is swinging, if you look at the swing in totality, you will see that she has a tendency to pull her left side around, and that's what's causing the right side to go toward the ball. She's holding her hands back in front of her shoulder, and her right elbow is coming underneath her hand in this position right here. Well, this position is creating what is called bat drag. At this point right here, her hands should be in front of her elbow, and you can see that her elbow is right underneath her hands here, which is not a good position. This creates what we call a drag of the bat, slowing the exit velocity down and decreasing power in the swing. All right, so couple things here that I would be telling this athlete is don't pull your right side to the ball by turning your left side around. What I want you to do is emphasize taking your right side to the ball. Now, taking your right side to the ball then is going to change her entire thinking about the concept of the swing, and it's going to prevent this drag situation that we see here. So let's see if we can look at what Aaron Juggs is doing down here. Now, look at the difference how he's taking his right side to the ball rather than pulling his right side around by using his left side rotation. What the left side is doing in his swing is just reacting to taking the right side to the ball. All right, so the right side emphasis and the whole thinking of the swing is I'm going to take the right side to the ball. Don't think about your left side. Your left side is going to be naturally responding to what the right side is doing. And that is also going to prevent the bat drag. All right, a third thing that we should look at is she keeping the bat head above the hands during the swing, and she's actually doing that pretty well. So the bat is above the hands, and that's what we want. If that bat starts getting below the hands here, then we're going to create some drag. Now it will go below the hands when we get into the hitting zone here, especially if it's a low pitch. But from here to here, we want that bat to stay above the hands, and that will help prevent the bat drag. So look at Aaron Juggs down below, and you see the bat is well above his hands, still above his hands, still above his hands, still above his hands, and now he is in what is called the punch, what I call the punch position. And the punch position is imagining that you're going to punch somebody right in the stomach. How would you do that? You would actually bring the elbow down close to your body and bend your elbow and punch your right arm forward. So that's position right here is the punch position. All right, so let's look at the top. Her punch position does not get established until she is almost making contact with the ball, or actually making contact with the ball. Now look where his punch position is established. So he's in the punch position right here. Now the ball is not even in the hitting zone yet. So now one thing that I tell my athletes to do is get in that punch position and get in that position well behind the ball. All right. Now in order to do that, you're going to have to move your hands to the ball. Now that is kind of an unpopular thing to say, because for years we've been telling people, our athletes, to throw our hands at the ball. And the problem is we've been saying throw our hands down through the ball. And that is creating a situation where you're putting your arms together, flipping your wrist, and slamming the ball down into the ground. That is not what I'm talking about here. So the problem is that a lot of instructors will tell the athlete to, watch Aaron Juggs here, to hold the hands right where right in front of the shoulder, keep the hands back right in front of the shoulder, which he is doing right there, but only momentarily. When he's, look at the angle of his elbow, it's still very sharp, and his hands are in front of his shoulder as he is turning. But right here, look what happens. His elbow starts straightening out, and it's straightening out because he is now taking his hands aggressively to the ball. Now look at the orientation of his hands compared to the position of the elbow. So here's his hands here. Here is the elbow back here. So now we are starting to get into the punch position. Now, how did he get there? He kept his hands in front of his shoulder, tight into his shoulder, making a very short stroke to the ball, but very early on in the swing, he started taking his hands to the ball and getting in the punch position early, where that punch position is behind the ball. Now let's take a look up at the top. And what she's doing is she's keeping her hands back, keeping her hands back, keeping her hands back in front of the shoulder the entire time. So the hands are being real lazy here, and that is, she is allowing the body to pull her hands to the ball, rather than at this point right here, she should be taking her hands to the ball aggressively to where her hands are in front of her elbow. So this position right here, then she is in a bat drag position. At his position, look at where his position, what his position looks like at the same point. See where his hands are in front of the ball. So, contrary to a lot of popular belief, we should be telling the athlete to get those hands out there to the ball, to get in that punch position, by taking the right side along with the hands to the ball and not pulling the right side around with the left side, and then also keeping the bat head above the hands. So again, look at the bottom here. You see where his bat head is above the hands. If the bat head goes below the hands, then we're going to create the bat drag, because you're going to take that right elbow and push it forward in order to flatten the bat out. Okay, so we're doing a lot of corrections here to a player that's actually very successful on the softball field, but it's going to make her much more successful if she works on these things. Now, the other thing to note, which is universal in the launch swing, and that is, look at Aaron Juggs' elbows. They are not changing the distance between the elbows. So this distance right here is being maintained. You're not putting your arms together. That's the old swing of throwing your hands down through the ball and putting your arms together, and now you're going to be hitting a lot of high hoppers to the third baseman and shortstop as a result. So if you look up top, then the first thing she's doing is pulling that elbow down, leaving her hands back, and that is causing her elbows to start to come together. Now, she does pretty well here, but she still needs to concentrate on keeping that space the same distance between the right elbow and the left elbow. Okay, the last thing that's going to prevent this bat drag is to make sure you have plenty of bat lag. Okay, now what am I talking about when I say bat lag? You want the top, let's go down to Aaron Juggs here, you want the top of the bat right here to be inside of the hands as long as possible throughout the swing. So let's watch him as he continues to swing here. Even when he's in the punch position, that bat, that end of the bat is actually inside of his hands. Do not allow that bat to swing to the outside of the hands. Then you're going to be wrapping around the ball and casting. So let's see how she does up here with this. Actually, she has a real good lag to her swing. So that bat is inside of her hands at this point, inside of her hands. And so lag is not an issue there. But it is an issue with a lot of players. You will see them cast. They actually do not hold the angle of their right thumb and their right wrist to keep that bat inside of the hands. Now, I think a good way to tell an athlete, especially a young athlete, how to do this is to take that bat and just keep that bat real close to the shoulder throughout the entire swing. So note that Aaron Juggs' knob to the bat is pointing at the catcher. And now watch him wrap that bat right around his shoulder, real tight to that shoulder. This is what we are talking about when we say we're going to go short to the ball. That bat is almost touching his shoulder. It's so far back behind his hands. Then once we get into the punch position, that's when we're going to release that wrist through the ball. Wait to hold that angle. Stay in tight, keep that bat head right around that right shoulder, then release. Okay? So, she does pretty well there on her bat lag, except that she is dragging the bat and she's not getting into the punch position until she's actually made contact with the ball. Okay? So, to summarize then, preventing bat drag, then one thing we need to do is get the hands more active and get those hands in front of the elbow. Keeping the elbows the same distance apart, keeping the bat head above the hands, and keeping the top of the bat inside of the hands, and therefore we're very short and quick to the ball. Here is where a lot of folks are making their mistake, is right here. If you look at Aaron Juggs, he's keeping his hands in front of the shoulder, but he is right there starting to take his hands to the ball. and now his hands are in front of his right elbow. Bat is above his hands. Bat tip is inside of his hands. Now he's in a great position, which is I call the punch position. Get that punch position behind the ball. Now release everything that you have stored up through the ball during that rotation. Now, we say a lot about the shoulders. Look at his left shoulder going up and back. Look at the shoulder tilt. Look at the rotation of the body. That's too much information for this young lady up here to try to think about while hitting an object that is going 50 miles an hour, and she only has 0.43 seconds to make a decision whether to swing at this ball or not. There's too much information going on. So my recommendation is to simplify for these kids so that they can think of maybe one swing thought, and that is all. And then the rest of the motion should come natural. So in my opinion, if we can teach them to get into that punch position right here early and get it behind the ball, then the shoulders, the rotation, and all of those details that we work on in the batting cage then becomes automatic. All right? So how are we going to keep our hands in front of the shoulder and prevent the bat drag is right here. We're going to start emphasizing taking the hands to the ball. We're going to keep the bat head up. We're going to keep the tip of the bat inside of the hands. And then, but the only, now when are you going to talk about these things? In the batting cage, not during the game. In the batting cage, you need to do this hundreds and hundreds of times and making sure all of those criteria are met. And then when you get in the game, just tell them to make sure and get in that punch position behind the ball, and that's all they think about. Now you're going to have a successful hitter because they have one swing thought and their concentration is on the ball rather than what is happening to their body parts during the swing. Hope this helps. This is Dr. Terry Shepard, and thanks for watching.